Imagine this a picture-perfect life in a Beverly Hills mansion. A loving husband who's a tech millionaire, and the joy of a surprise pregnancy. But what if that dream shatters when you discover your husband's cheating with your best friend on a luxury vacation he claimed was business secrets, lies, stolen millions, courtroom battles, a dramatic airport showdown, and shocking twists that will leave you gasping? This isn't just a story of betrayal. It's a roller coaster of revenge, resilience, and ultimate karma. Stick around as I dive deep into every chapter of Millionaire Cheats on Vacation, While Wife Alone, Karma Hits with Surprise, Airport Confrontation. You won't believe how it all unfolds. If you're hooked already, hit that like button if you've ever felt the sting of betrayal. Drop a comment with your wildest plot prediction. Share this with a friend who needs some drama in their life. And don't forget to subscribe for more epic story breakdowns and reactions. Let's get into it. Sofia Martinez pressed her trembling fingers against the marble bathroom counter of her Beverly Hills mansion, staring at the tiny pink plus sign that would change everything. At 38, she had almost given up hope of becoming a mother again after her devastating miscarriage 2 years ago. But here it was, proof that miracles still happened, even in millionaire marriages that seemed too perfect to be true. The morning sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of their master suite, casting golden shadows across the Italian marble floors that Richard had imported specially for their 10th wedding anniversary. Everything in their life screamed luxury, from the designer furniture that graced every room to the charity galas, where Sofia smiled perfectly for cameras while wearing gowns that cost more than most people's annual salaries. She practiced her announcement in the mirror, watching her reflection beam with joy. "Richard, we're going to have a baby." The words felt magical, hopeful, like the beginning of a new chapter in their seemingly perfect millionaire lifestyle. Her fingers traced the slight curve of her belly, already imagining the nursery they would design in the east wing of their mansion. But as Sofia waited for Richard to return from his morning run, something nagged at the edges of her consciousness. Her husband of 10 years had been increasingly distant lately, always buried in his phone during dinner, taking mysterious business calls at odd hours, and spending more time at the office of his luxury app company than ever before. When she questioned him about it, he would flash that charming smile that had first captured her heart and dismiss her concerns with talks of investor meetings and expansion plans. Sofia picked up her worn copy of Eat, Pray, Love from the nightstand, a book she had read countless times during moments of uncertainty. Elizabeth Gilbert's journey of self-discovery had always comforted her, especially during the difficult transition from her successful marketing career to becoming a devoted homemaker. Richard had convinced her that they could afford for her to focus on charity work and maintaining their social status. But sometimes she wondered if she had lost herself in the process. The sound of the shower running meant Richard was back from his run. Sofia smoothed her silk nightgown and took a deep breath, clutching the pregnancy test like a precious gift. This baby would bring them closer together. She was certain of it. This would be the fresh start their marriage needed. As she approached the bathroom door, Richard's phone buzzed on the nightstand. Normally, Sofia would never dream of looking at his private messages, but something about the late-night timing made her pause. The screen lit up with a notification that made her blood run cold. "Missing you already, my love. Last night was incredible. Can't wait for Maldives tomorrow. V." Sofia's hands shook as she picked up the phone. Who was V? Her mind raced through their social circle, trying to place someone with that initial. The message was followed by another that made her stomach drop. "Book the presidential suite like you requested. Sofia will never suspect a thing. Love you." The pregnancy test slipped from Sofia's fingers, clattering against the marble floor. The perfect life she thought she knew began cracking like the shattered plastic at her feet. Richard wasn't going to a business conference in the Maldives tomorrow. He was going on a romantic getaway with someone named V. With trembling fingers, Sofia opened Richard's laptop that sat on his desk in their bedroom. She knew his password, their anniversary date, something that now felt like a cruel joke. As the screen illuminated, Her worst fears materialized before her eyes. Hundreds of intimate photos filled a private folder labeled Paradise Found. But these weren't pictures of Sophia, the woman in Richard's arms, kissing him on exotic beaches and luxury hotel balconies. Had platinum blonde hair and a figure that Sophia recognized all too well. Vanessa Sterling, her best friend of 15 years, her maid of honor. The woman who had held Sophia while she cried after her miscarriage, who had encouraged her to trust Richard completely, who had been planning girls' trips that now seemed like elaborate covers for her affair with Sophia's husband. Outside, rain began to patter against the windows as if the sky itself was crying for Sophia's shattered world. She sank into Richard's leather chair, surrounded by evidence of a betrayal so complete, so calculated, that it took her breath away. Photo after photo showed Richard and Vanessa in luxury resorts, private jets, and intimate settings that spanned what looked like months, maybe even years. The shower stopped running. Sophia quickly closed the laptop and rushed back to the bathroom, grabbing the broken pregnancy test from the floor. When Richard emerged, towel wrapped around his waist, his perfect smile faltered at the sight of her tear-stained face. "Darling, what's wrong?" he asked, his voice carrying that concerned tone that had always made her feel protected and loved. "I'm pregnant," Sophia whispered, holding up the broken test. Richard's face went through a series of emotions: surprise, concern, and something else that Sophia now recognized as guilt. He pulled her into his arm, but for the first time in their marriage, his embrace felt hollow, contaminated by the knowledge of where those hands had been. "That's wonderful news, sweetheart," he said, kissing her forehead. "But you seem upset. Is everything okay with the pregnancy?" Sophia wanted to scream, to confront him with everything she had discovered. But something held her back. Maybe it was the pregnancy hormones, or maybe it was the part of her that still couldn't believe her perfect millionaire marriage was built on lies. "I'm just emotional," she managed. "Hormones? You know." Richard nodded, already reaching for his phone to check messages. "I understand. Listen, I have to fly out tonight for that investor conference in the Maldives. It's a crucial meeting for the company's expansion. I'll be back in a week, and we can start planning for the baby properly." The casual lie rolled off his tongue so easily that Sophia wondered how many others there had been. How many business trips were actually romantic getaways? How many late nights at the office were spent in Vanessa's arms? "Of course," Sophia said quietly. "Business first." As Richard packed his designer luggage, humming softly to himself, Sophia retreated to their walk-in closet, surrounded by thousands of dollars worth of designer clothes and handbags that no longer held any meaning. She finally allowed herself to break down completely. Her perfect life was a lie. Her husband was cheating with her best friend, and now she was pregnant in the middle of what promised to be the most devastating betrayal of her life. But as Sophia sat among her designer possessions, something inside her began to shift. The woman who had given up her career, her independence, and her identity for a man who could betray her so completely was about to become a mother. And that child deserved better than a life built on deception. Thunder rumbled outside as Sophia wiped her tears and stood up. Richard might think he had her fooled, but she was about to prove that even millionaire husbands couldn't hide from karma forever. The game was about to change, and Sophia Martinez was ready to play. Sophia sat on the marble floor of her walk-in closet, hyperventilating as designer shoes and handbags surrounded her like expensive monuments to her own naivety. Her Hermes bags, Christian Louboutin heels, and Chanel suits that had once made her feel powerful and sophisticated now seemed like props in an elaborate theater production where she had been the only one who didn't know she was playing a role. The laptop screen glowed in front of her, displaying photo after photo of Richard and Vanessa's luxury affair that had been unfolding right under her nose. Sophia scrolled through the evidence with morbid fascination, each image revealing new layers of betrayal that cut deeper than the last. Here was Vanessa wearing the diamond necklace that Richard claimed he had forgotten to pick up from the jeweler for Sophia's birthday. There they were toasting champagne on a private yacht while Sophia spent that same weekend alone. organizing charity auction items for underprivileged children. The timestamp on the photos revealed the crushing truth. This millionaire husband cheating scandal had been going on for at least 18 months. 18 months of elaborate lies, careful planning, and calculated manipulation. 18 months that included the period when Sophia was grieving her miscarriage, when Vanessa had held her hand through doctor's appointments and brought her comfort food while secretly planning vacations with her husband. Sophia's phone buzzed with an incoming call from the very woman whose betrayal was destroying her world. Vanessa's perfectly applied makeup smiled at her from the contact photo. The same face she had trusted with her deepest insecurities about aging, about Richard's growing distance, about her fears that her millionaire marriage was becoming hollow. "Hey, babe," Vanessa's voice chirped through the speaker with nauseating cheerfulness. "I'm so excited for my trip to the Maldives tomorrow. It's been so stressful planning this girl's retreat, but I really need some time to recharge. You know how exhausting dating has been for me." Sophia almost laughed at the audacity. A girl's retreat. The elaborate cover story was so perfect, so detailed, that it showed just how long Vanessa had been perfecting the art of deceiving her best friend. "That sounds wonderful," Sophia managed, her voice barely steady. "I hope you have an amazing time. I wish you could come with me, but I know Richard needs you to handle some of those charity commitments while he's away on business." Speaking of which, how are things with you two? You seemed a little distant at the country club last week. The manipulation was breathtaking. Even now, Vanessa was fishing for information about the state of Sophia's marriage while simultaneously living a luxury lifestyle funded by her husband's hidden assets. Sophia could hear the satisfaction in Vanessa's voice, the barely concealed triumph of a woman who believed she had successfully stolen another woman's life. "We're fine," Sophia said carefully. "Actually, I have some news. I'm pregnant." The silence on the other end stretched long enough for Sophia to imagine Vanessa's perfectly manicured nails tightening around her phone. "Oh, wow," Vanessa finally said, her voice noticeably flatter. That's wonderful news. How does Richard feel about it?" "He's thrilled," Sophia lied smoothly. "We're both so happy to be starting this new chapter together." After ending the call, Sophia returned to her investigation with renewed determination. She opened Richard's financial software and began documenting the scope of her financial betrayal in their wealthy marriage. What she discovered made her nauseous for reasons that had nothing to do with pregnancy hormones. Hundreds of thousands of dollars had been funneled through various accounts over the past 2 years. Luxury hotel bills, jewelry purchases, private jet rentals, and designer shopping sprees, all charged to business accounts that were technically marital assets. Richard had been using their money to fund an elaborate double life, while Sophia managed their household budget and charitable commitments like a responsible wife. The jewelry receipts were particularly devastating. Every piece that Sophia had assumed was a gift for her had actually been purchased for Vanessa. The tennis bracelet for their anniversary, the pearl earrings for Christmas, the sapphire ring for Valentine's Day, all of it had gone to the woman who smiled in Sophia's face while stabbing her in the back. Sophia found herself scrolling through old text messages between her and Vanessa, seeing their friendship in a completely different light. All those times Vanessa had encouraged Sophia to trust Richard completely, to stop being paranoid about his business trips, to focus on her charity work instead of her marriage. All those girls' nights when Vanessa had pumped Sophia for information about Richard's schedule, his preferences, his vulnerabilities. "You're so lucky to have a husband you can trust completely," Vanessa had texted just 3 weeks ago. "I wish I could find a man like Richard." The audacity was staggering. Vanessa hadn't just stolen Sophia's husband. She had stolen their entire life together, their inside jokes, their intimate moments, their future plans. Every conversation, every touch, every promise that Sophia had believed was sacred between husband and wife had been shared with another woman. But the real knife twist came when Sophia discovered the fertility clinic bills. Richard had been paying for Vanessa's fertility treatments while Sophia struggled with miscarriage grief and infertility challenges. The man who had held Sophia while she cried about their inability to conceive had been actively trying to start a family with her best friend. Thunder crashed outside as Sophia's emotional breakdown reached its peak. She screamed into a pile of cashmere sweaters, years of suppressed frustration and betrayal pouring out in primal waves. The perfect wife facade that she had maintained for years cracked completely, revealing the raw pain of a woman who had sacrificed everything for a man who valued her so little. Her phone rang again. This time it was Richard, calling from the airport. "Hi, sweetheart." His smooth voice carried through the speaker like poison wrapped in silk. "I just wanted to call before my flight takes off. Are you feeling better about the pregnancy?" "Much better," Sophia said, surprised by how calm her voice sounded. "I've been thinking about our future together." "That's wonderful to hear. I love you so much. Sophia, you and this baby are everything to me." Each word was a lie delivered with such practiced sincerity that Sophia wondered if Richard had convinced himself he was telling the truth. Men who cheated on their pregnant wives in millionaire marriages seemed to have a talent for compartmentalizing their deception. "I love you too," Sophia replied, the words tasting like ashes in her mouth. After Richard hung up, Sophia sat in silence for a long moment. Then she opened her laptop again and began taking screenshots of every photo, every financial transaction, every piece of evidence of the luxury affair that had been funded with her own money. A new text appeared on Richard's phone, which he had carelessly left behind in his rush to catch his flight to paradise with another woman. "Can't wait to see you in paradise. My love." Sophia called to congratulate me on my girl's trip. "She has no idea what's coming. V." Sophia stared at the message for a long time, then carefully placed Richard's phone back on the nightstand. Let him discover it was missing when he tried to coordinate with his mistress. Let him panic about what Sophia might have seen. Because while Richard and Vanessa were enjoying their luxury getaway funded by stolen marital assets, Sophia was going to be very busy. She had a pregnancy to protect, evidence to gather, and a plan to make. The naive wife who had believed in the fairy tale of their millionaire marriage was gone. In her place stood a woman who was about to prove that betrayed wives could be far more dangerous than cheating husbands ever imagined. Outside, lightning illuminated the mansion that would soon become a battlefield, and Sofia Martinez was ready for war. The cramping started at 3 in the morning, sharp pains that cut through Sophia's restless sleep like knives. She doubled over in the empty king-size bed, Richard's absence feeling more pronounced than ever as waves of agony coursed through her body. The pregnancy that was supposed to be her ray of hope in the darkness of betrayal now seemed threatened by the very stress that her husband's affair had created. Sophia fumbled for her phone with shaking hands, debating whether to call her doctor or drive straight to the emergency room. As another contraction-like pain seized her abdomen, she saw notifications flooding her screen. Dozens of missed calls, text messages, and social media alerts that made her blood run cold, even through her physical distress. Someone had leaked photos of Richard and Vanessa's romantic Maldives getaway to the tabloids. The headlines were everywhere. Tech millionaire's secret affair exposed. Pregnant wife betrayed while husband vacations with mistress. Inside the luxury love triangle shocking Beverly Hills. Photo after photo showed Richard and Vanessa kissing on pristine beaches, sharing intimate dinners, and lounging by infinity pools while Sophia had been home alone, organizing charity events and planning nursery colors. The public humiliation of their millionaire divorce scandal hit Sophia like a physical blow. Every detail of their private betrayal was now entertainment for millions of strangers. Comment sections overflowed with judgment, speculation, and cruelty that made her pregnancy complications feel secondary to the emotional devastation. "Another gold digger loses her meal ticket," read one particularly vicious comment. Maybe if she hadn't let herself go, her husband wouldn't have needed to find a real woman. "She looks pathetic in these old photos next to his new girlfriend. No wonder he upgraded. These wealthy housewives think they can just coast on their looks forever." Reality check. Sophia clutched her abdomen as another wave of pain hit, compounded now by the stress of seeing her most private humiliation become public entertainment. She dialed 911 with trembling fingers, barely able to speak through the physical and emotional agony. The emergency room at Cedars-Sinai was a blur of harsh, fluorescent lights and concerned medical professionals who recognized her immediately from the tabloid coverage. Sophia could see the sympathy and curiosity in their eyes as they performed ultrasounds and blood tests, checking for signs of miscarriage while photographers lurked outside, hoping to capture images of the pregnant wife's medical crisis. "Mrs. Blackwood, doctor," Sarah Chen said gently as she reviewed Sophia's test results. "The good news is that your baby appears to be healthy. However, I'm very concerned about your stress levels and blood pressure. At 38, with your history of miscarriage, excessive stress can pose serious risks to both you and your child." The doctor's words hung in the sterile air like a death sentence. Sophia was faced with an impossible choice: fight for her marriage and risk losing her baby, or protect her pregnancy while her husband publicly humiliated her with another woman. "Doctor," Sophia whispered, "if the stress continues at this level, what are the risks?" Dr. Chen's expression grew more serious. "Preterm labor, pregnancy complications, and yes, potentially pregnancy loss. I'm going to prescribe bed rest and stress reduction techniques. But honestly, Mrs. Blackwood, you need to remove yourself from whatever situation is causing this level of emotional trauma." As if summoned by the cruel timing of the universe, Sophia's phone rang. Vanessa's name appeared on the screen with nauseating cheerfulness. Against her better judgment, Sophia answered. "Sophia, oh my God, I just saw the news. I'm so sorry this is happening to you." Vanessa's voice dripped with false concern and barely concealed satisfaction. "I cut my girl's trip short when I heard about your medical emergency. I'm actually on my way to the hospital right now to support you." The audacity was breathtaking. Vanessa was coming straight from her luxury affair with Richard to play the role of supportive best friend at Sophia's bedside. The manipulation was so complete, so perfectly orchestrated, that Sophia almost admired its thoroughness. "That's very kind of you," Sophia managed, her voice hollow with exhaustion and disbelief. 20 minutes later, Vanessa swept into the hospital room like a performance artist taking the stage. She was glowing with the kind of radiance that came from days of luxury spa treatments and passionate romance. Her designer maternity dress, clearly chosen to make a statement, because Vanessa wasn't just Richard's mistress, she was pregnant too. "Oh, sweetie," Vanessa cooed, rushing to Sophia's bedside with an expression of exaggerated concern. "I'm so worried about you and the baby. This stress must be terrible for your pregnancy." Sophia stared at Vanessa's slightly rounded belly, visible beneath the perfectly fitted dress. The timeline was becoming clear. While Sophia had been grieving her miscarriage, Richard and Vanessa had been actively working to conceive their own child. The fertility clinic bills suddenly made horrifying sense. "Vanessa," Sophia said quietly, "are you pregnant?" Vanessa's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing a flash of triumph before she rearranged her features into a picture of reluctant confession. "I didn't want you to find out this way," Vanessa said, placing a protective hand over her stomach. "I'm about 4 months along. I haven't told anyone yet because the father, well, it's complicated." The room felt like it was spinning. Sophia was staring at her husband's pregnant mistress, who had flown back from their romantic getaway to play the role of concerned friend, while Sophia fought to save her own pregnancy. The cruelty was so complete, so perfectly designed to destroy her, that Sophia wondered if she was having a stress-induced hallucination. "Who's the father?" Sophia asked, though she already knew the answer. Vanessa's eyes filled with crocodile tears. "I can't say yet. He's still married, and we're trying to figure out the best way to handle the situation. But I promise you, Sophia, my pregnancy has nothing to do with what's happening in your marriage." The lie was delivered with such practiced sincerity that Sophia might have believed it if she hadn't seen the evidence with her own eyes. Vanessa was pregnant with Richard's child while simultaneously comforting Richard's wife through her own pregnancy crisis. The compartmentalization was psychopathic in its precision. As Vanessa continued her performance of supportive friendship, Sophia's phone buzzed with social media notifications. The story was gaining traction across every platform, with new details emerging hourly. Someone had leaked information about Richard's hidden financial accounts, his history of infidelity rumors, and even speculation about Vanessa's pregnancy. The comments section had evolved from cruel mockery to a strange kind of protective solidarity. Women from around the world were sharing their own stories of betrayal, offering support, and condemning Richard's behavior with increasing vehemence. "This is why women need to protect their assets in wealthy marriages," wrote one commenter. "These millionaire husbands think they can discard their wives like used cars. She needs to take him for everything he's worth. No man should be able to treat a pregnant woman this way." I went through something similar. The public humiliation was almost worse than the affair itself. But it gets better, sister. It gets so much better. For the first time since her world had collapsed, Sophia felt a spark of something other than despair. Strangers were defending her, supporting her, and sharing their own survival stories. The public humiliation that had felt like a death sentence was becoming something else entirely, a rallying cry for betrayed wives everywhere. Dr. Chen returned with discharge papers and a stern warning about stress management. As Sophia prepared to leave the hospital, Vanessa offered to drive her home, still playing the role of devoted friend with Academy Award-worthy commitment. "I'll stay with you tonight," Vanessa offered. "Make sure you're comfortable and safe." The idea of spending the night with her husband's pregnant mistress while recovering from pregnancy complications was so surreal that Sophia almost laughed. Instead, she looked directly into Vanessa's eyes and smiled with genuine warmth. "That won't be necessary," Sophia said calmly. "I think I need some time alone to process everything that's happened." As Vanessa's mask slipped again, revealing a flash of irritation at being dismissed, Sophia realized something important. She might be the betrayed wife in this scenario, but she wasn't powerless. Richard and Vanessa had shown their hands, revealed their strategies, and exposed their weaknesses. The pregnancy scare had given Sophia clarity about what truly mattered: protecting her child and rebuilding her life on her own terms. The public humiliation that was supposed to destroy her was actually setting her free from the prison of her perfect millionaire marriage. As rain continued to fall outside the hospital windows, Sophia placed both hands protectively over her belly and made a silent promise to her unborn child. They would survive this betrayal. They would thrive despite it. And Richard Blackwood was about to discover that underestimating a pregnant woman's protective instincts was the biggest mistake of his privileged life. Sophia sat in the mahogany-paneled office of Cooper and Associates, clutching a folder containing every piece of evidence she had compiled against Richard's luxury affair and financial deception. James Cooper, Beverly Hills' most notorious divorce attorney, studied the documents with the focused intensity of a surgeon examining a patient. His reputation for dismantling wealthy husbands in millionaire divorce cases was legendary, and Sophia needed every advantage she could get. "Mrs. Blackwood," James said, looking up from the financial records with a mixture of admiration and concern, "in 25 years of practice, I've rarely seen such systematic financial betrayal in a wealthy marriage. Your husband has been moving assets offshore for at least 2 years, well before his affair with Miss Sterling began." The confirmation hit Sophia like a physical blow. Richard's betrayal wasn't just about cheating with her best friend. It was a calculated financial heist that had been in planning for years. Every loving gesture, every reassurance about their future together, had been performed while he systematically stole their marital assets. "How much are we talking about?" Sophia asked, though she dreaded the answer. James consulted his notes carefully. "Conservatively, $15 to $20 million in hidden assets. Offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands, shell companies in Delaware, cryptocurrency investments, and several luxury properties purchased under corporate names. Your husband has been very thorough in his deception." $20 million. Sophia felt her pregnancy nausea return with a vengeance. Richard had been stealing their future while she organized charity galas and managed their social calendar. Every time she had praised him for his business acumen, she had been celebrating her own financial devastation. "There's more," James continued grimly. I've discovered that several major assets have been transferred to Miss Sterling's name over the past 6 months. The Aspen Ski Lodge, the yacht, even the art collection from your New York penthouse. Legally, she now owns property that was purchased with marital funds. The systematic nature of the theft was breathtaking. While Sophia had been planning their future and grieving their miscarriage, Richard and Vanessa had been executing a financial strategy that would leave her with virtually nothing. The luxury lifestyle that had defined their millionaire marriage was being transferred piece by piece to his pregnant mistress. "What about the prenuptial agreement?" Sophia asked, remembering the document she had signed 10 years ago when she was young and naive and believed love conquered all. James smiled grimly. "That prenup was predicated on mutual honesty and fidelity. Your husband's systematic fraud invalidates several key clauses. We have grounds to challenge it completely." For the first time in days, Sophia felt a spark of hope. Maybe justice was possible after all. Maybe Richard's wealth and privilege couldn't protect him from the consequences of his betrayal. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Stop investigating or you'll regret it. Some secrets are better left buried." A friend. Sophia showed the message to James, who immediately forwarded it to his security team. The threatening message confirmed what they both suspected. Richard knew about Sophia's investigation and was escalating his tactics. "Mrs. Blackwood," James said seriously, "wealthy men facing significant financial exposure in divorce proceedings can become dangerous. I'm arranging for personal security for you, and I strongly recommend that you stay away from your marital home until we can secure temporary orders." The idea that Richard might pose a physical threat seemed impossible to the woman who had shared a bed with him for 10 years. But then again, she never would have believed he could steal millions from their marriage while impregnating her best friend. As if summoned by their conversation, Sophia's phone rang. Richard's name appeared on the screen with a photo from their honeymoon in Tuscany, a reminder of happier times that now felt like evidence of an elaborate con game. "Sophia, darling." Richard's voice carried his usual charm, but Sophia could hear the underlying tension. "I've been hearing disturbing rumors about you hiring attorneys and making accusations. We need to talk." "I think we're past talking, Richard," Sophia replied calmly. "Your lawyer can contact my lawyer." "Don't be dramatic, sweetheart. I know you're upset about the tabloid photos, but those were taken completely out of context. Vanessa and I were discussing business ventures. Nothing more. You know how the media loves to create scandals where none exist." The gaslighting was so brazen, so perfectly delivered, that Sophia almost admired its audacity. Richard was attempting to convince her that photographic evidence of his affair was simply a misunderstanding, that her own eyes and the financial records were lying to her. "Richard," Sophia said quietly, "I'm pregnant with your child, and you're in the Maldives with another woman who is also pregnant with your child. We're well beyond media misunderstandings." The silence stretched so long that Sophia wondered if the call had dropped. When Richard finally spoke, his voice carried a coldness she had never heard before. "I see you've been very busy while I was away," he said. "I hope you understand the implications of the choices you're making. Sophia, I've built an empire that can protect itself, and I won't hesitate to use every resource at my disposal to maintain my family's security." The threat was delivered with corporate smoothness, but the message was clear. Richard was prepared to destroy her to protect his assets and his relationship with Vanessa. The man she had loved and trusted was revealing himself to be a stranger capable of breathtaking cruelty. "Is that a threat, Richard?" "It's a reality check. You're a beautiful woman, Sophia, but you're not irreplaceable. I suggest you consider very carefully whether you want to go to war with someone who has significantly more resources than you do." The call ended with a click that sounded like a door slamming on 10 years of marriage. Sophia sat in stunned silence, processing the complete transformation of the man she thought she knew. The Richard who had held her during her miscarriage, who had promised to love her in sickness and health, had just threatened to destroy her for discovering his crimes. James Cooper was already drafting emergency motions for asset preservation and temporary support when Sophia's phone buzzed again. This time it was Vanessa, calling from what appeared to be a luxury spa in Monaco. Sophia, I just talked to Richard. He's very concerned about you. Maybe we should meet for coffee when I get back. I think there are some misunderstandings we need to clear up. The casual tone, the suggestion of misunderstandings, the continuation of the elaborate deception even after being exposed. Vanessa's commitment to the charade was almost impressive in its sociopathic consistency. I don't think coffee will be necessary, Vanessa, Sophia replied. I think everything is quite clear. Oh, honey, you're making this so much more complicated than it needs to be. Richard and I are trying to handle this situation with discretion and respect for everyone involved. But if you insist on making things ugly, the implied threat hung in the air like poison. Vanessa was no longer pretending to be Sophia's friend. She was revealing herself as a co-conspirator in the financial and emotional destruction of Sophia's life. Later that evening, as Sophia sat in her sister Maria's modest apartment in Glendale, she received an eviction notice via email. Richard's lawyers were claiming that the Beverly Hills mansion was solely owned by his corporation and that Sophia had no legal right to occupancy. She was being thrown out of her own home while still recovering from pregnancy complications. The cruelty was systematic, professional, and devastatingly effective. Richard and Vanessa had planned every aspect of their betrayal with corporate precision, from the financial theft to the public humiliation to the legal warfare. They had turned Sophia's life into a hostile takeover. But as Sophia read the eviction notice in Maria's small living room, surrounded by family photos and the authentic warmth of working-class love, she realized something important. Richard could steal her money, her home, and her social status, but he couldn't steal her determination to protect their child. The naive wife who had believed in fairy tale endings was gone. In her place stood a woman who was about to prove that maternal instinct was more powerful than millionaire privilege. The war was just beginning, and Sophia Martinez was ready to fight for everything that mattered. The studio apartment above Maria's garage in Glendale was a far cry from the Beverly Hills mansion that had defined Sophia's identity for the past decade. The space was smaller than her former walk-in closet, with second-hand furniture and walls that needed repainting. But it held something her millionaire marriage had lacked: authenticity. Maria Martinez Rodriguez had always been the practical sister, the one who stayed grounded while Sophia chased wealthy husbands and luxury lifestyles. Now, as Sophia unpacked her remaining possessions into cardboard boxes, Maria's no-nonsense wisdom felt like a lifeline in the chaos of her betrayed wife journey. You know what your problem was, Maria said, folding Sophia's designer clothes into neat piles. You forgot who you were before Richard. You became this perfect accessory to his success instead of being your own person. Sophia wanted to argue, but the truth was undeniable. Somewhere between charity galas and social media perfection, she had lost touch with the ambitious marketing executive who had built her own successful career before sacrificing it all for love. I thought I was being a good wife, Sophia admitted, running her hands over her growing belly. I thought supporting his dreams meant abandoning my own. Supporting is one thing, disappearing is another. The therapy sessions with Dr. Elena Torres began the following week in a small office that felt worlds away from the luxury medical centers Sophia was accustomed to. Dr. Torres, a Latina therapist who specialized in financial abuse and betrayal recovery, immediately cut through Sophia's carefully constructed defenses. Tell me about the woman you were before you became Mrs. Richard Blackwood, Dr. Torres said during their first session. The question caught Sophia off guard. She had spent so many years defining herself through her marriage that she struggled to remember her independent identity. Slowly, memories surfaced. The marketing campaigns she had created, the clients she had won through creativity and determination, the dreams she had deferred and eventually forgotten. I was good at what I did, Sophia said quietly. I mean, really good. I had plans to start my own agency before I met Richard. What happened to those plans? He said he could support us both, that I didn't need to work so hard. He made it sound romantic, like he was rescuing me from corporate stress. Sophia paused, seeing the manipulation clearly for the first time. But really, he was isolating me, making me financially dependent. The pattern of emotional codependency became clearer with each session. Richard had systematically eroded Sophia's independence while making her feel loved and protected. The financial control, the social isolation disguised as luxury, the gradual erosion of her professional identity. It had all been part of a long-term strategy to make her completely dependent on him. Recovery from this kind of betrayal, Dr. Torres explained, isn't just about healing from infidelity. It's about rediscovering who you are when you're not performing a role for someone else's benefit. Inspired by therapy and driven by necessity, Sophia began documenting her experience online. She started a blog called Behind the Millionaire Marriage: A Betrayed Wife's Journey, and was shocked by the immediate response. Within days, hundreds of women were sharing their own stories of financial abuse, emotional manipulation, and betrayal in wealthy marriages. "I thought I was the only one stupid enough to fall for the fairy tale," wrote one commenter. "My husband had me convinced that questioning his business trips made me a paranoid wife. The isolation is the worst part," shared another. "I lost all my friends, my career, my sense of self. When I finally left, I had to rebuild everything from scratch." The online community became Sophia's lifeline. Women from around the world offered practical advice, emotional support, and most importantly, proof that survival was possible. Some shared legal strategies, others recommended therapists, and many simply provided the validation that Sophia's experience was real and her feelings were justified. Her first video blog post was filmed in Maria's small kitchen with natural lighting and zero production value. Sophia spoke directly to the camera about the reality behind the luxury lifestyle facade, about the financial betrayal hidden beneath designer clothes and charity galas. The video went viral within hours. "I want to talk to the women who are living my story right now," Sophia said to the camera, her voice steady despite her tears. "You're not crazy. You're not paranoid. You're not asking for too much. Trust your instincts, document everything, and remember that your worth isn't determined by someone else's ability to love you properly." The response was overwhelming. Sophia's inbox flooded with messages from women in similar situations, some still trapped in their marriages, others in various stages of escape and recovery. The shared experiences created a digital sisterhood that transcended geographic and economic boundaries. The transformation wasn't just emotional, it was physical too. Sophia traded her designer wardrobe for thrift store finds and discovered a style that felt authentically hers. She learned to navigate public transportation, to budget groceries, and to find joy in simple pleasures that her wealth had made unnecessary. "You look different," Maria observed one evening as they shared dinner from Maria's small kitchen table. "More like yourself." Sophia caught her reflection in the window and realized Maria was right. The perfect makeup and styled hair were gone, replaced by a natural radiance that came from living authentically. She was still pregnant, still fighting legal battles, still processing betrayal, but she was no longer performing the role of the perfect wife. The blog evolved into a platform for sharing resources about financial literacy, legal rights, and emotional recovery. Sophia interviewed divorce attorneys, therapists, and financial advisors, creating content that could help other women navigate similar crises. The work felt meaningful in a way that organizing charity galas never had. One evening, while reading through comments on her latest post, Sophia found a quote from Cheryl Strayed's "Wild" that perfectly captured her journey. How wild it was to let it be. She was learning to let go of the need to control how others perceived her story. The tabloids could call her pathetic, Richard could threaten her with legal warfare, and Vanessa could play innocent victim. But Sophia's truth was resonating with thousands of women who recognized their own experiences in her words. The private investigator James Cooper had hired called with an update that shattered Sophia's growing sense of peace. Richard and Vanessa had been married in a secret ceremony in Monaco 2 weeks ago, making their betrayal complete and legal. The woman who had played bridesmaid at Sophia's wedding had now replaced her entirely. But instead of devastation, Sophia felt something unexpected: relief. The pretense was finally over. Richard could no longer gaslight her about the nature of his relationship with Vanessa, and Sophia was free to move forward without the hope that had been keeping her trapped. That night, she created her most powerful blog post yet. When your best friend becomes your replacement, how I found freedom in the ashes of ultimate betrayal. The post went viral across multiple platforms, shared by celebrities and featured in major publications. Sophia's story was becoming larger than her personal pain. It was becoming a rallying cry for women who had been diminished, discarded, and betrayed by the men they trusted most. As she fell asleep in her small bed above Maria's garage, listening to the sounds of a real neighborhood instead of the artificial quiet of gated communities, Sophia felt something she hadn't experienced in years: excitement about her future. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, more legal battles, and continued recovery from the deepest betrayal of her life. But tonight, for the first time since her world collapsed, Sophia Martinez was looking forward to discovering what came next. The woman who had lost everything was finally finding herself. The summons arrived on a Tuesday morning that began like any other in Sophia's new life. She was editing a blog post about financial red flags in relationships when the certified mail delivery changed everything. Richard was suing for full custody of their unborn child, claiming that Sophia's unstable living conditions and vindictive behavior made her unfit for motherhood. The legal documents painted a picture of Sophia that was both unrecognizable and devastating. According to Richard's attorneys, she was a mentally unstable woman who had abandoned her luxurious lifestyle to live in poverty, who spent her days creating defamatory content online, and who posed a risk to their child's safety and well-being. "He's using my own strength against me," Sophia told Dr. Torres during their emergency session that afternoon. "Every step I've taken toward independence, he's twisting into evidence of instability." The custody petition was accompanied by photographs of Maria's modest neighborhood, financial statements showing Sophia's reduced circumstances, and screenshots of her blog posts about their marriage. Richard's legal team had conducted surveillance on her daily life, documenting everything from her trips to the thrift store to her visits to the community health clinic. Most devastating were the character witnesses Richard had lined up: former friends from their social circle, people who had smiled at Sophia's charity events while secretly judging her marriage, were prepared to testify about her erratic behavior and obsession with her husband's business affairs. "Mrs. Blackwood has become increasingly paranoid and vindictive," read one statement from a country club acquaintance. "She's clearly unable to provide the stable environment that a child of Mr. Blackwood's stature requires." The class warfare was blatant and brutal. Richard wasn't just fighting for custody. He was arguing that poverty itself made Sophia an unfit mother, that her reduced circumstances were evidence of mental instability rather than the natural consequence of his financial theft. James Cooper's counter-strategy was swift and aggressive. "We're going to prove that Richard's wealth was built on marital asset theft and fraud," he explained during their strategy session. "A father who steals from his child's mother isn't exactly a stability role model." But Richard's next move caught everyone off guard. Child Protective Services arrived at Maria's apartment on a Thursday evening, armed with a court order and reports of suspected child endangerment. Someone had called in an anonymous tip claiming that Sophia was using drugs and living in unsafe conditions. The social worker was professional but thorough, documenting every detail of the small apartment while Sophia underwent immediate drug testing and psychological evaluation. The humiliation was complete. The woman who had once hosted fundraisers for children's charities was being investigated as a potential threat to her own unborn child. "I know this is difficult," the social worker said as she completed her inspection, "but we have to take all reports seriously, especially those involving pregnant women and wealthy divorce proceedings." The implication was clear. This wasn't the first time a wealthy husband had weaponized child services against his wife. The system that was supposed to protect children was being used as another weapon in Richard's legal arsenal. Sophia's blood and urine tests came back clean. Her psychological evaluation showed normal grief responses to betrayal trauma, and the apartment inspection revealed safe, clean living conditions. But the damage was done. There was now an official CPS file documenting the investigation, which Richard's attorneys would undoubtedly use as evidence of Sophia's questionable fitness as a mother. The international custody jurisdiction complications emerged during the next hearing. Richard's lawyers revealed that their new Monaco residence gave him standing to file for custody in European courts, where his wealth and social connections might provide additional advantages. If Sophia wanted to fight for her child, she might have to do it on foreign soil where Richard's privilege carried even more weight. The legal bills were mounting faster than Sophia could manage. Even with James Cooper's pro bono assistance for the most serious matters, Richard's deep pockets allowed him to file motion after motion, forcing Sophia to respond to constant legal attacks that drained both her financial resources and emotional energy. "This is a common strategy," James explained grimly. "Wealthy abusers use the legal system as a weapon, filing frivolous motions to exhaust their victims' resources. He's counting on you giving up from sheer exhaustion." But Richard had underestimated maternal instinct. Every attack on Sophia's fitness as a mother only strengthened her resolve to protect her child. She began documenting every interaction, every threat, every attempt at manipulation. If Richard wanted a war, she would give him one fought with the weapons of truth and persistent documentation. The temporary custody hearing provided a brief moment of hope. Judge Martinez, a Latina woman who had built her career fighting for children's rights, was unimpressed by Richard's wealth-based arguments about superior living conditions. "Mr. Blackwood," Judge Martinez said sternly, "your financial resources are impressive, but this court determines custody based on the best interests of the child, not the size of the bank account. Can you explain why living in a loving, stable home with extended family support is inherently inferior to living in a mansion purchased with allegedly stolen marital assets?" Richard's lawyers scrambled to respond, but their arguments about luxury amenities in private schools fell flat in the face of Judge Martinez's pointed questions about emotional stability and genuine care. Sophia won temporary custody, with Richard granted supervised visitation rights pending the resolution of the financial fraud investigation. For the first time in months, she felt like justice might be possible. But Vanessa's next move shattered that hope completely. The evidence arrived via messenger on a Friday afternoon. Photographs, witness statements, and video footage allegedly showing Sophia drinking alcohol at various social events over the past year. The documentation was thorough and professionally assembled, painting a picture of a woman with serious substance abuse issues who had been hiding her addiction throughout her pregnancy. "These photos are fake," Sophia told James, staring at images that looked convincingly real but depicted events that had never happened. "I haven't had a drink since I found out I was pregnant. I barely drank before that." But the fabricated evidence was sophisticated enough to create reasonable doubt. In one photo, Sophia appeared to be drinking wine at a charity auction. In another, she seemed to be holding a cocktail at a gallery opening. The images were doctored with professional skill, creating a narrative of secret alcohol abuse that could devastate her custody case. "Vanessa has money and connections," James said grimly. "She could have hired the best digital artists to create this evidence, but proving they're fake will take time and resources we don't have." The witness statements were equally damaging. Former household staff, people who had worked for Richard for years, were prepared to testify about finding empty bottles hidden in Sophia's bedroom, about her erratic behavior during social events, about their concerns for any child in her care. "I never understood why Mr. Blackwood stayed with her so long," read one statement from a former housekeeper. "She was clearly struggling with personal problems that affected her judgment." The psychological warfare was exquisite in its cruelty. Vanessa had created an alternate reality where Sophia was the unstable party, where Richard's affair was justified by his wife's hidden addictions, where stealing millions in assets was actually protecting those resources from an irresponsible woman. As Sophia sat in the courthouse bathroom, staring at her reflection while processing the latest attack on her character, she felt something shift inside her chest. Not despair this time, but a cold, clear fury that cut through her exhaustion like a blade. They wanted to paint her as unstable fine. She would show them what a truly determined mother looked like when someone threatened her child. The stress of the custody battle was affecting her pregnancy, causing contractions that sent her to the emergency room twice in 1 week. But even as her body struggled with the trauma, Sophia's mind grew sharper, more focused on the single goal that mattered more than anything else. She would not let Richard and Vanessa steal her child the way they had stolen everything else. The war was escalating, but Sophia Martinez was just getting started. The contractions started during the final custody hearing, sharp pains that cut through Sophia's concentration as she testified about Richard's systematic financial abuse. She gripped the witness stand, determined to finish her statement despite the increasing pressure in her abdomen. At 34 weeks pregnant, she was still 2 months away from her due date, but the stress of constant legal warfare was taking its toll on both mother and child. "Mrs. Blackwood," Judge Martinez said with concern, noticing Sophia's obvious distress, "do you need a recess?" "I'm fine, Your Honor," Sophia insisted, though another contraction made her gasp. "I need to finish my testimony." But her body had other plans. As Sophia tried to continue speaking about the hidden offshore accounts and fabricated evidence, her water broke in the middle of the courtroom. The dramatic moment sent both legal teams into chaos, as paramedics were called, and the hearing was immediately suspended. The ambulance ride to Cedars-Sinai was a blur of medical professionals and monitoring equipment, with James Cooper following behind and Richard surprisingly appearing at the hospital within an hour. For the first time since his affair was exposed, Richard showed genuine emotion as he watched Sophia being wheeled into the labor and delivery unit. "Is she going to be okay?" he asked Dr. Chen, his usual smooth confidence replaced by raw worry. "Is the baby going to be okay?" The question revealed something Sophia hadn't expected. Despite everything he had done, Richard still cared about their child's welfare. The revelation complicated her anger, adding layers to a situation that had seemed straightforward in its villainy. Emma Martinez Blackwood was born at 11:47 p.m., weighing just 4 pounds and requiring immediate transfer to the neonatal intensive care unit. Sophia's first glimpse of her daughter was through a tangle of tubes and monitors, a tiny fighter who had entered the world during the battle for her future. "She's beautiful," Richard whispered, tears streaming down his face as he looked at their daughter through the NICU window. "She's so small, but she's perfect." The medical crisis created an unexpected ceasefire in their custody war. Richard spent hours in the NICU, learning to change diapers and speaking softly to Emma through the incubator walls. For brief moments, watching him with their daughter, Sophia remembered why she had fallen in love with him 10 years ago. "I never wanted it to be like this," Richard said during one of their quiet moments in the NICU waiting room. "I never wanted our child to be born into this chaos." "Then why did you create the chaos?" Sophia asked, too exhausted for anger. Richard was quiet for a long time before answering. "I don't know how to explain it without sounding like I'm making excuses. I fell in love with Vanessa, and instead of handling it honorably, I tried to have everything. I thought I could manage the situation without anyone getting hurt." The admission was both validating and infuriating. Richard's affair hadn't been a momentary lapse in judgment. It had been a calculated attempt to restructure his life while keeping all the benefits of his marriage. His remorse seemed genuine, but it was the remorse of someone who regretted getting caught rather than someone who regretted the betrayal itself. The hospital staff became unexpected allies in Sophia's custody case. Nurses documented Richard's genuine care for Emma, alongside his obvious guilt and emotional distance from Sophia. Their professional observations would become crucial character evidence, showing that while Richard loved his daughter, his relationship with her mother was irreparably damaged by his own actions. Dr. Patricia Williams, Emma's neonatologist, became particularly protective of Sophia after witnessing the stress-induced early labor. "Your daughter is fighting hard," she told Sophia during one of their daily consultations. "Premature babies born to mothers under extreme stress often show remarkable resilience. Emma seems determined to survive and thrive despite the difficult circumstances of her birth." But Vanessa's jealousy over Richard's paternal devotion created new complications. She appeared at the hospital on Emma's third day of life, 6 months pregnant herself, and clearly uncomfortable with Richard's emotional investment in his first child. "I think it's important that we establish healthy boundaries," Vanessa told Richard in the NICU family room, apparently unaware that Sophia could hear every word from her nearby chair. "Our baby needs to be your priority now, not this situation with your ex-wife." The casual reference to Sophia as Richard's ex-wife when their divorce wasn't even finalized revealed Vanessa's complete psychological ownership of Richard's life. In Vanessa's mind, Sophia was already erased, reduced to a problematic obligation from Richard's past, rather than the mother of his child. "Emma is my daughter," Richard said quietly. "She's not a situation to be managed." "Of course she is, darling. But you can't let guilt over past mistakes interfere with our future. We have our own family to think about now." The conversation revealed cracks in Richard and Vanessa's relationship that hadn't been visible during their romantic honeymoon phase. Vanessa's demand for exclusive emotional loyalty clashed with Richard's genuine love for Emma, creating tension that would only grow as both children required his attention and resources. Sophia used these moments of vulnerability to strengthen her own position. She learned to operate the NICU equipment, mastered the feeding schedules, and became Emma's primary advocate with the medical team. The nurses began deferring to her judgment about Emma's care, recognizing her as the most consistently present and knowledgeable parent. "You're an incredible mother," said Jenny, Emma's primary nurse. "I've seen a lot of NICU parents over the years, and your dedication to your daughter is remarkable. Emma is lucky to have you fighting for her." The praise felt like a lifeline to a woman whose fitness as a mother had been systematically attacked for months. Every diaper change, every feeding session, every hour spent singing lullabies to Emma through the incubator walls was documented by hospital staff who would testify to Sophia's exceptional maternal care if needed. Richard's visits became less frequent as Vanessa's pregnancy progressed and her demands for his attention increased. The man who had initially shown such devotion to Emma began delegating her care to Sophia more completely, treating his daughter like another business obligation to be managed rather than a relationship to be nurtured. "I have to prioritize Vanessa right now," Richard explained during one of his brief visits. "Her pregnancy is high risk, and she needs my support." The irony was staggering. Richard's pregnant mistress required his attention and care, but his pregnant wife had been expected to navigate betrayal, legal warfare, and premature labor essentially alone. The double standard revealed the true hierarchy of Richard's emotional priorities. On Emma's 10th day in the NICU, Vanessa confronted Sophia directly for the first time since the hospital parking lot encounter months earlier. She approached while Sophia was kangaroo carrying with Emma, holding her daughter skin to skin to promote bonding and healing. "We need to talk," Vanessa said, her voice carrying the authority of someone who believed she held all the power. "I'm busy with my daughter," Sophia replied calmly, not looking up from Emma's peaceful face. "Richard and I have been discussing the custody situation, and we think it would be best for everyone if you were reasonable about shared parenting. Emma will have a half-sister soon, and it's important that she grow up knowing her family." The audacity was breathtaking. Vanessa was attempting to negotiate custody arrangements while positioning herself as Emma's future stepmother and the architect of her real family. The woman who had stolen Sophia's husband was now trying to claim maternal authority over Sophia's daughter. "Vanessa," Sophia said quietly, finally looking up, "you can steal my husband, my money, and my social status, but you will never be Emma's mother. That's one thing you can't take from me." Vanessa's perfectly composed mask slipped, revealing the calculating woman underneath. "We'll see about that," she said coldly. "Richard and I have resources you can't compete with. Courts care about stability and financial security. Not emotional attachment, but as Vanessa turned to leave, she miscalculated the presence of Dr. Williams, who had witnessed the entire exchange from the nurse's station. The neonatologist's professional observation of Vanessa's threatening behavior toward a new mother in the NICU would become another piece of evidence in the growing documentation of harassment and intimidation. That night, as Sophia sat in the uncomfortable NICU recliner, watching Emma sleep peacefully, despite her premature entry into a complicated world, she felt something shift in her understanding of the situation. This wasn't just about winning custody or protecting her assets anymore. It was about protecting Emma from people who saw her as a pawn in their larger game. Emma deserved better than parents who used her as a weapon against each other. She deserved better than a father who prioritized his new wife's jealousy over his daughter's needs. Most importantly, she deserved a mother who would fight for her with every breath in her body. As Sophia placed her hand on Emma's tiny chest, feeling the steady rhythm of her daughter's determined heartbeat, she made a silent vow. Emma would grow up knowing that she was wanted, loved, and worth fighting for. Whatever Richard and Vanessa planned next, they would discover that underestimating a mother's protective instinct was their biggest mistake yet. The battle for Emma's future was just beginning, and Sofia Martinez had found her ultimate motivation. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source: Maria's teenage son, Miguel, a computer science student who had been quietly following his aunt's legal battle with the righteous indignation of someone who understood digital manipulation. While Sophia focused on Emma's medical care and custody preparations, Miguel had been conducting his own investigation into the fabricated evidence that threatened to destroy her case. "Tia Sofia," Miguel said excitedly, bursting into the small apartment with his laptop. "I figured out how they made those fake photos. Look at this." The metadata analysis Miguel had performed revealed digital footprints that proved professional photo manipulation. The images of Sophia apparently drinking alcohol had been created using sophisticated software, but Miguel's forensic examination uncovered compression artifacts and timestamp inconsistencies that proved the photos were doctored. "See this?" Miguel pointed to barely visible pixels around Sophia's hand in one image. They copied her from a real photo where she was holding a water glass and digitally replaced it with a wine glass. But they didn't perfectly match the lighting angles, so there's evidence of manipulation if you know what to look for. Maria immediately called James Cooper, who arranged for a professional digital forensics expert to confirm Miguel's findings. Within 48 hours, they had irrefutable proof that the alcohol abuse evidence was completely fabricated, a fact that would not only invalidate Vanessa's character assassination, but potentially expose her to criminal charges for evidence tampering. But Miguel's investigation uncovered something even more valuable. While analyzing Richard's social media accounts and cross-referencing them with business records, he discovered inconsistencies in the timeline of Richard's relationship with Vanessa that suggested their affair had been going on much longer than anyone suspected. "Look at this Instagram post from 3 years ago," Miguel said, showing Sophia a photo of Richard at a tech conference. "Vanessa liked it within minutes of posting, but according to your divorce filings, they didn't meet until 18 months ago through your friend group." The digital breadcrumbs revealed a pattern of social media interactions going back years, proving that Richard and Vanessa's relationship predated Sophia's miscarriage, her depression, and many of the pivotal moments in their marriage that she had blamed on her own inadequacies. Sophia's online support community became an investigative force when she shared Miguel's discoveries. Women from around the world began crowdsourcing additional evidence, using their professional skills and personal networks to uncover more details about Richard's business practices and Vanessa's history. A forensic accountant in Chicago volunteered to analyze Richard's financial records. A private investigator in Miami offered to research Vanessa's background. A technology executive in Seattle provided access to advanced data recovery tools. The digital sisterhood that had formed around Sophia's story was becoming a formidable opponent for Richard's expensive legal team. The research revealed that Richard's luxury app company had been systematically inflating user numbers and revenue projections to attract investors, securities fraud that could result in federal criminal charges. The offshore accounts weren't just hidden marital assets, They were repositories for money that had been stolen from legitimate business partners and shareholders. More damaging still was the discovery that Vanessa had a history of targeting wealthy married men. Public records and social media investigations revealed a pattern going back almost a decade. Young, attractive women who cultivated friendships with wealthy wives before systematically seducing their husbands and manipulating them into leaving their families. "She's done this before," Dr. Torres said during their session after reviewing the evidence. "This isn't a love story that got complicated. It's a professional con game. Vanessa is what we call a predatory mistress, someone who specifically targets married men with significant assets." The revelation recontextualized everything. Sophia's 14-year friendship with Vanessa hadn't been gradually corrupted by an affair. It had been a long-term infiltration designed to gain access to Richard's wealth and social status. Every girl's night, every confidence shared, every moment of vulnerability had been data collection for an elaborate confidence game. Armed with this evidence, James Cooper filed motions to invalidate the fabricated alcohol abuse evidence and submitted the financial fraud discoveries to both family court and federal prosecutors. The case that had seemed hopeless was suddenly shifting in Sophia's favor as the truth about Richard and Vanessa's systematic deception emerged. Dr. Torres provided expert testimony distinguishing between trauma responses and genuine mental instability. Her professional analysis of Sophia's behavior throughout the crisis demonstrated normal grief reactions to extraordinary betrayal rather than the erratic conduct Richard's team had claimed. Mrs. Blackwood's responses to systematic financial abuse, emotional manipulation, and public humiliation are entirely consistent with those of a psychologically healthy person processing extreme trauma, Dr. Torres testified. Her ability to maintain focus on her child's welfare while building a support network and seeking professional help actually demonstrates remarkable emotional resilience. The FBI's involvement in investigating Richard's financial crimes added weight to Sophia's accusations about hidden assets and securities fraud. Federal agents froze several of Richard's offshore accounts pending their investigation, immediately improving Sophia's financial position and validating her claims about systematic asset theft. But Richard's desperation led to his most revealing mistake yet. Panicked by the FBI investigation and the collapse of his carefully constructed narrative, he called Sophia directly from Monaco, apparently forgetting that all his communications were being monitored by federal investigators. "You need to stop this witch hunt immediately," Richard demanded during the recorded call. "I'm prepared to offer you a very generous settlement if you withdraw your cooperation with the federal investigation." "What kind of settlement?" Sophia asked, James Cooper gesturing for her to keep Richard talking. "Full custody of Emma, the Beverly Hills house, and $20 million. All you have to do is sign a statement saying you were mistaken about the financial irregularities." The attempted bribery was not only additional evidence of Richard's guilt, but a federal crime in itself. By offering money to influence a federal investigation, Richard had committed obstruction of justice on a recorded line while his assets were under federal scrutiny. "Richard," Sophia said calmly, "I'm not interested in your money anymore. I'm interested in making sure Emma grows up knowing the difference between right and wrong." The recorded conversation became crucial evidence in both the custody case and the federal criminal investigation. Richard's attempt to buy Sophia's silence proved that he understood the severity of his crimes and was willing to commit additional crimes to cover them up. Vanessa's reaction to the FBI investigation revealed more cracks in their relationship. Faced with potential criminal charges as an accessory to financial fraud, she began distancing herself from Richard's business practices and suggesting that she had been manipulated by his wealth and power. "I had no idea about the offshore accounts," Vanessa claimed in her statement to investigators. "Richard handled all the financial arrangements. I thought the gifts and trips were legitimate business expenses." The attempt to portray herself as another victim of Richard's deception was transparently self-serving, but it created additional pressure in their relationship as Richard realized that Vanessa would sacrifice him to protect herself if necessary. Meanwhile, Sophia's blog had evolved into a comprehensive resource about financial abuse in wealthy marriages. Her documentation of Richard's tactics was being used by divorce attorneys across the country to help other women recognize and combat similar manipulation. The platform that had started as personal therapy was becoming a tool for systematic change. The turning point came when Richard's attempts to flee the country were thwarted by federal agents at Monaco Airport. His arrest for securities fraud, money laundering, and obstruction of justice was broadcast live on financial news networks, providing the dramatic confrontation that had been building throughout their legal battle. Sophia watched the airport footage from Emma's NICU room, holding her daughter while Richard was led away in handcuffs. The powerful man who had threatened to destroy her was being destroyed by his own crimes, broadcast for the world to see. But even as justice seemed within reach, Sophia knew the story wasn't over. Vanessa was still pregnant with Richard's child, still fighting to maintain access to his remaining assets, and still capable of causing damage even from her increasingly precarious position. The war had shifted dramatically in Sophia's favor, but the final victory was still ahead. The call came at dawn while Sophia was feeding Emma in the NICU. FBI agent Sarah Chen's voice carried urgency and excitement as she delivered news that would change everything. "Mrs. Blackwood, we've located Richard. He's attempting to board a private jet at LAX with fake documentation and approximately $2 million in cryptocurrency. We need you to come to the airport immediately. Your testimony could be crucial for preventing his escape." Sophia's hands shook as she secured Emma in her carrier. At 3 weeks old, Emma was finally stable enough for short trips outside the hospital, and Dr. Williams had cleared her for travel with proper precautions. As they rushed toward LAX in Agent Chen's SUV, Sophia realized this moment had been inevitable since the day she discovered Richard's laptop in their bedroom. The scene at the private aviation terminal was chaos orchestrated by media attention and federal law enforcement. News vans lined the perimeter as FBI agents coordinated what appeared to be a carefully planned operation to prevent Richard's flight to a non-extradition country. "He's been planning this escape for weeks," Agent Chen explained as they approached the terminal. "Cryptocurrency transfers, false passports, and a Gulfstream jet registered to a shell company in Panama. Your husband was preparing to disappear permanently." Through the terminal windows, Sophia could see Richard pacing frantically while speaking into his phone. Even facing imminent arrest, he carried himself with the arrogant confidence of a man who believed his wealth could solve any problem. Vanessa stood nearby, her pregnancy visible beneath a designer travel outfit, looking increasingly panicked as the situation deteriorated. "Mrs. Blackwood," Agent Chen said seriously, "we'd like you to confront him directly while our cameras are recording. His reaction to seeing you and Emma could provide additional evidence of his intent to flee and abandon his responsibilities." The moment felt surreal as Sophia walked through the terminal doors carrying their daughter toward the man who had stolen their future. Richard's face went through a series of emotions when he saw them: surprise, guilt, anger, and something that might have been regret. "Sophia," Richard said, his voice carrying a mixture of desperation and false bravado, "what are you doing here? And why did you bring Emma to this circus?" "I brought Emma so she could see her father being arrested for the crimes he committed against her family," Sophia replied, her voice steady despite her racing heart. The words were being recorded by multiple cameras, broadcast live on news networks, and documented for federal court proceedings. "You're being dramatic," Richard said, but his eyes kept darting toward the FBI agents surrounding them. "This is just a business trip that's been misunderstood by overzealous federal agents." "A business trip with fake passports and stolen money?" Sophia asked. "A business trip where you plan to abandon your 3-week-old daughter forever?" The public confrontation was everything the media had hoped for: a pregnant wife betrayed by her millionaire husband, standing in an airport holding their premature baby, while he attempted to flee the country with his pregnant mistress. The optics were devastating for Richard, and perfect for Sophia's narrative of maternal strength, triumphing over wealthy male privilege. "I was protecting our assets from seizure," Richard claimed, his usual smooth manipulation sounding desperate in the harsh terminal lighting. "Everything I did was to secure Emma's future financial security." By stealing from her mother and abandoning her completely? Sophia's voice carried across the terminal, amplified by news microphones and social media live streams. You were going to let her grow up believing her father didn't love her enough to stay and face the consequences of his actions. Vanessa finally approached, her face tight with anger and fear. This is all a misunderstanding, she said to the cameras, her voice carrying the practiced tone of someone accustomed to manipulating public perception. Richard is a loving father who would never abandon his children. Children? Sophia turned to face Vanessa directly. Are you claiming to speak for my daughter now? The confrontation between the two pregnant women became the focal point of the media coverage. Vanessa, perfectly groomed and expensively dressed, represented the luxury lifestyle that had corrupted Richard's values. Sophia, holding Emma while wearing simple clothes that reflected her reduced circumstances, embodied the authentic maternal love that wealth couldn't purchase. Richard chose me, Vanessa said with vicious satisfaction. He chose our child over the life he had with you. You're just a bitter ex-wife who can't accept that she wasn't enough to keep her husband. The cruelty was so blatant, so perfectly timed for maximum media impact, that Sophia almost admired its effectiveness. But Vanessa had miscalculated the public's sympathy for a woman holding a premature baby while confronting her husband's pregnant mistress. You're right, Sophia said calmly. Richard did choose you. He chose a woman who helped him steal from his own child. He chose a woman who fabricated evidence to destroy his daughter's mother. He chose a woman who encouraged him to abandon his responsibilities and flee the country rather than face justice. The systematic dismantling of Vanessa's narrative was broadcast live to millions of viewers who were witnessing the real-time destruction of the luxury affair that had captivated tabloid attention for months. Every word was being documented for custody proceedings, federal court, and the court of public opinion. I think, Sophia continued, looking directly into the news cameras, that says more about Richard's character than it does about mine. Richard's attempt to interrupt was cut short by Agent Chen, approaching with handcuffs and an arrest warrant. Richard Blackwood, you're under arrest for securities fraud, money laundering, obstruction of justice, and attempted flight to avoid prosecution. The moment of Richard being led away in handcuffs while Sophia held Emma became iconic imagery that would define the story for years to come. The powerful man who had threatened to destroy his pregnant wife was being destroyed by his own crimes while she stood strong, protecting their daughter from the chaos he had created. But the drama wasn't over. As federal agents searched Richard's luggage, they discovered additional evidence that expanded the scope of his crimes: encrypted drives containing financial records, communications with offshore banking specialists, and evidence of additional affairs dating back years before he had even met Vanessa. Mrs. Blackwood, Agent Chen said privately, we found evidence that your husband has been systematically defrauding business partners and investors for almost a decade. The financial crimes go far beyond stealing marital assets. This is a massive securities fraud that could result in federal prison time. The revelation meant that Richard's wealth, the foundation of his power and influence, was largely built on criminal activity. The luxury lifestyle that had defined their marriage was funded by stolen money, making Sophia as much a victim of Richard's crimes as any other investor he had defrauded. Vanessa's reaction to Richard's arrest revealed the calculated nature of her involvement. Instead of supporting him or protesting his innocence, she immediately distanced herself from his legal troubles and began negotiating with federal investigators about her own potential cooperation. I was manipulated by Richard's wealth and power, Vanessa told reporters outside the terminal. I'm as much a victim of his deception as anyone else. The attempt to rebrand herself as another victim rather than a co-conspirator was transparently self-serving. But it created additional pressure in their relationship and provided prosecutors with potential leverage for securing Richard's cooperation in recovering stolen assets. The airport confrontation ended with Richard in federal custody, Vanessa facing potential charges as an accessory, and Sophia holding Emma while surrounded by supportive crowds who had watched the entire drama unfold. The woman who had been portrayed as an unstable and vindictive ex-wife had proven herself to be a strong mother protecting her child from systematic abuse. "This is what justice looks like," Sophia said to the cameras as Richard's plane sat empty on the tarmac. "No amount of money or privilege can protect someone from the consequences of betraying the people who trusted them most." The live broadcast reached millions of viewers and established Sophia as a symbol of maternal strength triumphing over wealthy male entitlement. Her blog crashed from traffic as women around the world shared their own stories of betrayal and recovery, inspired by her public confrontation with the man who had tried to destroy her. But even as Richard faced federal prosecution and Vanessa scrambled to save herself, Sophia knew the real work was just beginning. Emma deserved to grow up in a world where justice was possible, where truth mattered more than wealth, and where mothers could protect their children from powerful men who believed themselves above consequences. The airport confrontation was the climax of their legal battle, but it was also the beginning of Sophia's new life as a woman who had faced the worst possible betrayal and emerged stronger than ever. As federal agents led Richard away and media crews documented the end of his criminal empire, Sophia looked down at Emma sleeping peacefully in her arms and smiled. They had survived, they had won, and their future was finally their own to build. 2 years later, Sophia stood before a Senate committee investigating financial abuse in domestic relations, holding a speech that would become defining legislation for protecting assets in divorce proceedings. Emma, now a healthy toddler with Richard's dark eyes and Sophia's determined spirit, played quietly in the hearing room while her mother testified about the systematic nature of financial crime in wealthy marriages. "Senators," Sophia said, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had survived the worst possible betrayal and built something meaningful from the ashes. "Financial abuse is domestic violence perpetrated through economic control. When wealthy individuals use their resources to systematically destroy their spouse's independence, they're committing crimes that our legal system must address more aggressively." HANA, the Martinez Foundation for Financial Justice, had grown from Sophia's blog into a national organization providing legal support, financial literacy education, and advocacy for women escaping economically abusive relationships. The nonprofit had helped over 3,000 women navigate divorce proceedings against wealthy abusers, creating a network of resources that made survival possible for women in Sophia's former position. "Mama up," Emma demanded, raising her arms toward Sophia as the hearing concluded. The gesture drew smiles from the senators and media coverage that emphasized Sophia's transformation from victimized wife to national advocate while successfully raising her daughter as a single mother. The apartment above Maria's garage had been replaced by a modest house in Silver Lake, furnished with secondhand finds and filled with the authentic warmth that their Beverly Hills mansion had lacked. Emma's nursery was painted with butterflies and rainbows, decorated with handmade quilts from the women Sophia had helped through their own custody battles. James Cooper had become more than Sophia's attorney. He had become her closest friend, and eventually, something deeper. Their relationship had developed slowly, built on mutual respect and shared commitment to justice rather than the passionate romance that had blinded Sophia to Richard's manipulation. "Are you nervous about tomorrow?" James asked that evening as they prepared dinner together while Emma napped. Tomorrow marked the official launch of Sophia's book, Behind the Millionaire Marriage, A Betrayed Wife's Guide to Financial Recovery, which had already garnered international attention for its practical advice and emotional honesty. "Excited, not nervous," Sophia replied, stirring pasta sauce while humming one of Emma's favorite lullabies. "I never thought I'd be grateful for the worst experience of my life, but helping other women has given everything meaning." Their relationship had progressed naturally, without the dramatic intensity that had characterized her marriage to Richard. James understood her trauma, respected her independence, and loved Emma with the devotion of a father who had chosen his role rather than inherited it. When he proposed 6 months ago, it had felt like the logical next step in building a family based on mutual support rather than romantic fantasy. The wedding planning was simple, focused on celebration rather than spectacle. Maria would officiate the ceremony in their backyard, Surrounded by friends from Sophia's support group and colleagues from the foundation, Emma would serve as flower girl, wearing a dress sewn by one of the women they had helped escape her own abusive marriage. But the peaceful evening was interrupted by an unexpected visitor. Vanessa Sterling appeared at their front door, 6 months pregnant with what would be her second child with Richard, looking haggard despite her expensive maternity wear. "I need to talk to you," Vanessa said, her voice lacking its former confidence. "There are things you need to know about Richard, about his past, about why he really targeted your marriage." Sophia's first instinct was to slam the door and call security, but something in Vanessa's expression suggested genuine desperation rather than another manipulation attempt. Against James's advice, she invited Vanessa inside while keeping Emma close and recording the conversation on her phone. "Richard is in federal prison," Sophia said calmly. "Whatever games you're playing now can't hurt me anymore." "This isn't a game," Vanessa replied, opening a briefcase filled with documents and photographs. "I found these in Richard's Monaco safe deposit box. He's been planning something like this for much longer than any of us realized." The documents revealed that Richard's criminal activity extended far beyond securities fraud and money laundering. He had systematically targeted wealthy women throughout his career, seducing them, stealing their assets, and discarding them when their resources were exhausted. Sophia wasn't his first victim. She was at least his sixth. "My God," James breathed, examining financial records that showed a pattern spanning 15 years. "He's been running the same con game since his early 20s. More shocking still were the documents revealing that Richard's first wife hadn't died in a car accident, as he had claimed. Margaret Blackwood had been found dead in their Swiss chalet under suspicious circumstances, leaving a $50 million inheritance that had become the foundation of Richard's business empire. The inheritance was supposed to go to Margaret's son from her first marriage," Vanessa explained, her voice shaking. "Richard had the boy declared incompetent and gained control of the trust. That child has been institutionalized for 10 years, believing his stepfather cared for his welfare while Richard stole his entire inheritance." The revelation recontextualized everything: Richard's wealth, his business success, his ability to manipulate legal systems. All of it had been built on the systematic theft of a child's inheritance. Emma wasn't just the daughter of a criminal. She was potentially the rightful heir to millions of dollars that had been stolen from another orphaned child. "Why are you telling me this?" Sophia asked, still processing the implications of Margaret's son being alive and legally entitled to the money that had funded Richard's empire. "Because that son is someone you know," Vanessa said quietly. "Someone who has been helping you all along, waiting for the right moment to reclaim what was stolen from him." The photograph Vanessa pulled from the briefcase showed a young boy with familiar eyes standing next to Margaret Blackwood at a charity event. The same eyes that looked back at Sophia every day from across the breakfast table. The same eyes that had helped her navigate the legal system and build a new life. James Cooper wasn't just her attorney and fiancé. He was Margaret Blackwood's son, the rightful heir to the $50 million inheritance that Richard had been stealing from him for over a decade. "James." Sophia turned to face the man she thought she knew, seeing his familiar features in a completely different context. "Is this true?" The silence stretched between them like a chasm opening in the foundation of her rebuilt life. Everything she thought she knew about their relationship, about his motivation for helping her, about the justice they had achieved together, was suddenly suspect. "I was going to tell you after the wedding," James said quietly, his voice carrying a mixture of guilt and defensiveness. "I needed to be certain about the evidence, certain that we could recover the inheritance without destroying what we built together." The betrayal felt different from Richard's deception, but equally devastating. James had entered her life under false pretenses, hidden his true identity, and manipulated her trust while claiming to love her. The man she was planning to marry in 6 weeks had been using her to pursue his own vendetta against Richard. "How long have you known?" Sophia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "How long have you been planning this?" "I've been tracking Richard since my mother's death," James admitted. "When I saw your case, I recognize the pattern. I took your case because I thought helping you would also help me expose his crimes. Emma stirred in her sleep, sensing the tension in the room even in her unconscious state. Sophia looked down at her daughter, then at the man she had trusted with their future, and realized that her story wasn't ending with justice and happiness after all. So our entire relationship has been part of your investigation? Sophia asked. Everything between us has been motivated by revenge. No, James said urgently. It started that way, but I fell in love with you. I fell in love with Emma. What we have is real. Sophia, even if how it began was complicated. The explanation felt hollow in the face of such systematic deception. Sophia had spent 2 years rebuilding her ability to trust, learning to distinguish between authentic love and skilled manipulation, only to discover that her greatest ally had been pursuing his own hidden agenda all along. There's something else, Vanessa said, seemingly determined to complete Sophia's devastation. The inheritance Richard stole from James was supposed to go to Margaret's children. Plural. James has a younger sister who was adopted after Margaret's death. A sister who grew up believing her family abandoned her. The final revelation hit Sophia like a physical blow. The family she thought she was building with James was connected to a web of secrets, stolen inheritances, and hidden identities that made Richard's betrayal seem simple by comparison. As Sophia sat in her living room holding Emma, while processing the collapse of everything she thought she knew about her future, she realized that her story wasn't ending after all. The happy ending she had worked so hard to build was actually the beginning of an even more complex chapter in her journey toward truth and justice. Outside, rain began to fall against the windows of the home she had thought was finally safe. And Sophia Martinez, who had survived the worst betrayal imaginable, prepared to discover just how much more complicated her life could become when the people she trusted most were hiding the biggest secrets of all. The truth about Richard's crimes was finally complete, but the truth about James's identity meant that Sophia's fight for justice was far from over. As Emma slept peacefully in her arms, Sophia looked at her daughter and made another silent promise, whatever came next. They would face it together, with their eyes wide open and their trust carefully guarded. The woman who had lost everything and built it back was about to discover that sometimes the greatest challenges came not from enemies, but from the people who claimed to love you most.